Chapter 900. Wilbur could only use the ace as 1 in value for the cards he had. The ace was drawn to the card set that had 15 in total. It would be overboard if he used it as a 10 in value. Wilbur had 16 in total for both sets of cards. It was a tough position to be in as the values were neither here nor there. However, the dealer had an advantage, so he had an extremely high chance of losing. It was in the rules that the player had limited draws after splitting the cards, which meant Wilbur could only have 3 cards in each set. His cards had reached that limit, so he was not allowed to draw more cards, which meant those were his final values. It was the dealer's turn. The dealer showed her cards. She had a 10 in total. She needed to draw another card. The dealer called out before drawing another card for herself. It was a 2. The dealer only had 12 in total, and it was not enough to win against Wilbur. However, the dealer had greater odds of winning. She could draw another card, and she would win if the card was less than 10 in value. There were way more cards that were less than 10 compared to cards more than 10 in value. The dealer called nonchalantly, and she drew a card for herself. Everyone felt very tense. They stared at the dealer as if it was their bet. Tiff stared with wide eyes. She wondered if Wilbur was still that lucky. No one could judge him if he wins again. He would be considered the chosen one if he wins again. The dealer revealed her cards. It was a 10. Everyone exclaimed and looked at Wilbur with disbelief. They were all stunned by his crazy luck. The dealer said with a nonchalant expression, "House goes bust, the player wins." Wilbur won with both set of cards. His bet was 800,000, so he won 1.6 million in total. Combined with the previous winnings, his total winnings were $2 million worth of chips on that table alone. The dealer cast a weird look at Wilbur and she paid out the chips. Everyone was dumbfounded by his luck. It was simply unbelievable. Wilbur had over $3 million worth of chips piled up in front of him. Tiff was also dumbfounded. She did not know what to do at that point. He had won so much money, so it was time for him to stop. However, his luck was out of this world, so she did not dare to suggest anything again. Wilbur's phone rang at that moment. He took his phone out and answered the call. He hung up after a few exchanges of words. "That's all for today," said Wilbur while smiling after he hung up the phone. The audience around him wondered why they sighed in relief. Tiff also sighed in relief. She hurriedly helped Wilbur collect the chips. Wilbur stood and smiled politely at the dealer. The dealer smiled back in return. "Sir, do you want to cash the chips out?" asked Tiff. Wilbur replied, "I'm not in a hurry. I'm staying for a few days." "I see. Let me walk you back to your room then." He nodded and they were about to leave. Suddenly, someone asked, "Yo, did you win money?" "This bumpkin actually won money. How fucking unfair." Wilbur frowned and turned around. He saw the 2 men and the women who stood near him when he entered the hotel. Wilbur did not want to acknowledge them, so he merely turned to walk away. A man in a white t-shirt mocked, "Leaving so soon after winning a little? Do you dare to gamble for a few more rounds? I'll play with you." "What's wrong with you people?" asked Wilbur coldly as he turned around.